I've been decorating the park, so I'm not real, real purdy tonight.
The poll looks beautiful, though.
Thank you.
Oh, and we just lost Dan, it looks like.
Oops. That was a step in the wrong direction.
Indeed. Oh, now he's back.
Is Julie coming?
She should be on in just a moment.
Okay.
All right, Julie, are you connected?
Yeah, I finally just connected.
Okay. Are you planning on connecting to video, or shall we continue? Or shall we begin?
No, hold on. Let me click that start video. There. Okay.
Okay, great. It is 6:03, and this is the November 16th, 2020 meeting of the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation. We are missing two members, Bob Kerr and Arnett Easley, but we do have a quorum. Item number 2, open public comments. Richard, do we have anyone who made a comment?
We did not have anyone who provided us comments for tonight's meeting, and I don't see any public in attendance.
No, we do not. All right, then with the board's approval, we'll move on to item number 3, approval of meeting minutes for the regular meeting held on October 19th, 2020, and the special meeting of November 9th, 2020. Does anyone have any comments on the form, substance, punctuation, or otherwise of the meeting minutes? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion for both sets of minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from both meetings.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the meeting minutes for the regular meeting held on October 19th, 2020, and the special meeting of October 9th, 2020. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion? All those in favor of what? I'm sorry?
Dan, did you second it, Dan?
I did.
Okay, I was just double checking my notes. Go ahead.
All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes for the regular meeting held on October 19th, 2020, and the special meeting of November 9th, 2020, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion passes unanimously, and we will approve the meeting minutes for the regular meeting held on October 19th, 2020, and the special meeting of November 9th, 2020. Item number 4, approval of financial reports. Richard, would you like me also to read the sub number as well, or should we pass? Should we do them separately?
Let's bring that up after the general report, please.
Okay, thank you.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, so we have our cash accounts. We have our checking account at 90 as of October 31st, so 3 weeks ago, $94,841.29, and then our combination of our 2 text pool accounts, which total $1,492,939.58. Anthony did send me a message saying that text pool has been hovering right there at about 0.13%. So he's continuing to watch that on a daily basis to make sure that it stays there. But he said it's just been hovering right there. He did put some notes down here for us where he transferred $104,139.36 in sales tax that will show up on our November financials for the next meeting. He also went on and transferred our monthly G&A transfer, and then also our monthly sales tax accrual reimbursement under the 360 agreement transfer. Now he accidentally went off of the last fiscal year's budget for the sales tax transfer. And so he's made a catch-up transfer to accommodate both October and November, because he had transferred both months already based on last year, but he's already fixed it. And so we should equalize out and be right on track again once we see next month's financials. Let's see if he said anything else about, oh, and then he also was able to reallocate the $1,500 that we approved last meeting for the Christmas parade line item out of the parent account of the events. Moving to the next page, it just shows we only had two, out of our checking account, we only had two transactions, a transfer of $125 into the account for the Light Up the Park revenue, and then we had a reimbursement for Facebook of $25. The only activity, of course, in our sales tax account was the transfer and then a little bit of interest. And then in our savings account, he deposited our sales tax transfer that came in October. And then the two monthly transfers out. And it looks like, is Creedon a software? Becky or Richard, do you know what Creedon is for 285?
That is the trademark attorney.
It's what?
The attorney for the copyright and trademark action.
Oh, okay. All right. So then when we're going to actual to budget, the sales tax that MEDC collected in October was $56,979.38. That is a 9% decrease from October of 2019, but it should be consistent with what the city's experiencing. Little bit of interest income, the sales tax reimbursement booking, and then the Facebook coded to advertise, social media advertising for $25, our G&A monthly transfer, and then the consulting professional services had the $285 to the attorney booked, and then $1,000 to Rebecca Huss for social media services. Is there any questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Julie?
None here.
One thing you'll see that I asked Anthony about that he was able to clarify for me is on that sales tax line on the actual to budget performance. You see the budget is $50,000, but the annual is $675. So your second column is 50, but then that far right column is 675. And, you know, of course, my first question was, why isn't that, I would take 50 times 12 and it would be 600,000. So why is it off? And he said he's, which is totally fine with me and appropriate. He is budgeting more in those quarterly months, the 4 quarterly months. To try to be more reflective rather than a 1/12 all the way across for the entire fiscal year, because we know we're going to collect more in those quarterly months. He's trying to seasonalize that out, and that was totally appropriate. So that's the explanation of why you may see some of these months where we're only expecting 1 month's worth of collections. You'll see it at 50,000, then you'll see a higher budgeted amount in those quarterly months.
So that's interesting. So we're actually slightly above our pessimistic assumptions.
Correct.
For revenue.
Correct. Based on the way, we're a little bit above the way he allocated it out makes sense and is appropriate.
Right. And we'll probably do even better those months because the quarterly accruers are Entergy and the grocery stores that are pretty recession proof.
Yeah. So that was one of the questions I had for him, but it makes sense of why he's doing it. And and I think it makes the reports more useful, and it makes them it's a better picture.
Right. Well, it makes us stop disregarding things because you say, oh, well, that doesn't matter for this month. And then next month you might forget that you said it's supposed to matter this month, even though it didn't matter next month. You get to the point where you start trusting the numbers every month.
Right.
As opposed to not paying attention the wrong month.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and approve the financial report.
Say something very quickly. So I see that we have allocated the previously approved events funds to the sub-accounts.
So I was going to take that as 4A as a separate item. I was just going to do the financial reports and then do 4A afterwards.
Okay. Sorry.
Is that all right?
Yes.
Yes, I think we should keep it separate.
So if someone just wants to make a motion to approve the financial reports as discussed, we can move to 4A, which is the allocated event funds.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the financial reports as discussed. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of approving the financial reports as discussed, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously and we will approve the financial reports as discussed. Item 4A, discuss and consider allocating previously approved funds for Southern Rum Runners and Montgomery Music and Mudbugs festival events that were canceled in the past fiscal year.
And those were both events that were planned for the last fiscal year were canceled with the pandemic. We've been in contact with each of them and they each intend to carry forward during 2021. And so the previous discussion had been, to carry that money forward. And so that's what this is for. What I show is that we had allocated $8,000 for the Music and Mudbugs Festival and $7,800 for Southern Rum Runners Food Truck Festival in October. And while that's an expense in the next fiscal year, under our agreement with them, we would be providing that funding during this current fiscal year. So it should be an expense to this year. And so we had discussed at the time of setting the budget that we would take this action, at a subsequent meeting. So that's why it's here tonight.
Did you ever get an answer from the attorney or on resending the event sponsorship if something doesn't come back? Do we have the authority to rescind those actions, or do we need to have a vote on that again? Or how does that work if somebody doesn't come back and have a?
Are you? I guess in your question, are you presuming that they just take no action to put the festival on?
Yeah. Say somebody comes up and we approve their event, and then they just don't do the event. Do we need to then go back and vote to rescind that sponsorship, to take it out of our budget, or do we just drop it?
Technically, you don't have to rescind it if they don't meet the standards for the for the expense. We can just choose not to fund it. But it may be cleaner in that regard to if it becomes evident that they're either not going to do it or they're going to do it in a way that doesn't meet the standard, then it would probably be cleaner to take a formal action at that point.
Okay.
Because if I remember,
the funds have been allocated, but we haven't cut any checks, correct? We haven't loaned them, given them operating funds for their own businesses or anything to that effect.
We've not provided them any of the funding for this or another purpose. And technically, this action is to allocate the funding in this budget that existed in the last budget.
Okay, do we have any idea when have they set any future dates for their assumed festivals?
The Charlie Diggs is eyeing the second and third weekends in March for his festival, the Montgomery Music and Mudbugs, and I think tentatively eyeing Southern Rum Runners the third and fourth weekends in the coming October.
Okay.
And of course, those are tentative dates at this time, but those are the periods that they were eyeing the last I discussed with them. And those are consistent with what their plans were for 2020.
And if you recall, what we allocated the money for is essentially an escrow account primarily for submitted receipts specifically, but also mostly internal expenses like security, like public works, that sort of thing. So if the event,
right.
If the event doesn't happen, then these expenses won't be incurred by them or by us.
So do we need to take action on this? Just go forward and the funds are allocated. So really it's not an action item, is it?
Well, it is an action item because when we approved the budget, we did not allocate the money. And so what I was asking is, for the board to take the action to go ahead and put that same allocation in that you had previously, which is $7,800 for the Southern Rum Runners food truck event and $8,000 for Charlie Diggs event for Montgomery Music and Mudbugs Festival, with the same conditions that were originally approved.
So I'll make the motion if you guys want me to. I move to allocate previously approved funds of $7,800 to Southern Rum Runners out of the parent account of events into the Southern Rum Runners sub-account of events, and $8,000 out of the parent events account into the Mudbugs and Music sub-account under the same conditions as previously approved. Does that cover it?
I believe so.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we allocate previously approved funds from the parent account of events in the amount of $7,800 to the sub-account for Southern Rum Runners and $8,000 from the parent account of events to the sub-account of Montgomery Music and Mudbugs Festival under the same conditions as previously approved. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of the motion that we allocate previously approved funds from the parent account of events in the amount of $7,800 for the Southern Rum Runners food truck event sub-account and the parent account of events in the amount of $8,000 to the Montgomery Music and Mudbugs Festival in the amount of $8,000 under the same conditions as previously approved, say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed say no.
No.
The motion carries 4-1, and we will allocate the previously approved funds from the parent account of events to the two aforementioned sub-accounts. Item number 5, provide report on downtown development and streetscape planning project.
All right, this is really going to be a pretty simple report tonight, but want to make sure we're all up to date on everything. And I also wanted to make sure I was in the habit of having this on the agenda going forward. On October 19th, the MEDC selected Gunda Corporation as the firm of choice for this study and this planning. On November 9th, the MEDC met in a special meeting to approve the contract. It had previously given tentative approval, but based on the fact that the funds were higher than I had estimated, even though they were still within budget, I wanted to make sure the MEDC board was kept informed and updated on that. On November 10th, the City Council gave its approval for the expenditure of the MEDC funds for this item. The contract is currently being reviewed by the city attorney, and we expect that back in the next couple of days. During this part of the process, Dave McCorkadale is in the process of providing preliminary information and basic communication with Gunda Corporation. So they are prepared to start the project in short order. And so that's where we are at the moment. Does anyone have any questions? Right.
Okay, if there are no questions, then with your concurrence, I will move on to item number 6. Discuss and consider amending the authorized bank account signer list by resolution.
Okay, I'm looking to add at this time 1 signer to the bank account. MEDC Vice President Dan Walker is the only is the only officer non-signer at this point. And so he becomes the most logical choice, I think, obviously, to add that. Dan has already provided us the basic information the bank requires, and Anthony has been coordinating with the bank to get that paperwork set up so that we have that in place, pending MEDC board approving this resolution.
Move to approve the addition of MEDC Vice President Dan Walker as a signer to MEDC banking accounts by resolution.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we add Dan Walker as a signer to the MEDC banking accounts by resolution. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adding Dan Walker as the signer to the MEDC banking accounts signer list by resolution, say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will add Dan Walker as a signer to the MEDC bank accounts signer list by resolution. Item number 7, discuss and consider setting revised holiday meeting schedule.
Okay. Started this out looking at the Christmas or December meeting this week. That week the meeting day falls within Christmas week. And so my understanding is that would normally be canceled due to holiday conflicts. The January and February meetings both fall on city and federal holidays. And so I'd be looking for approval to move those to the Tuesday following the normal meeting date. Also stating in there, January is also the setting of the annual meeting of the corporation. So
in the past, I think in the past we have had them on the holidays anyway, but I'm amenable to changing that. Anyone else?
Okay.
I was just stating a fact, not an objection.
I know I, for one, from speaking on the point of view of staff, we would appreciate it if the board would consider doing that.
Well, then no.
Move to approve canceling the MEDC regular meeting of December 21st, 2020 due to scheduling conflict with the Christmas holiday. Rescheduling the January regular annual meeting date for January 19th. Regular and annual meeting for January 19th, 2021, and reschedule the February regular meeting date for February 16th, 2021.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we cancel the MEDC regular meeting of December 21st, 2020, reschedule the January regular and annual meeting date for January 19th, 2021, and reschedule the February regular meeting date for February 16th, 2021. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of the motion that we cancel the MEDC regular meeting of December 21st, 2020, reschedule the January regular and annual meeting date for January 19th, 2021, and reschedule the February regular meeting date for February 16th, 2021, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will reschedule the 3 meetings as mentioned.
Thank you.
Item number 8, discuss and consider approval of MEDC licensing agreement.
Okay. If you reviewed the agreement that was attached that came in late last week from the city's attorney, there's a few details that need to be worked out, and then I can finalize that with the attorney. The primary questions I have in there are regarding any starting fees, how we organize, whether it's a percentage or a flat fee, a term for the use, and if we outline any specific territories. As I was going through those, my thoughts were organizing the fees. At the moment, I'm not looking at this as necessarily being a giant moneymaker so much as getting our imagery and our name and logo out there in the city, and hopefully a little wider. My recommendation to the EDC is a $25 fee for up to $1,000 in sales generated with the logo. A fee of $50 for for sales between $1,000 and $50,000 in sales, and 1%, if they have sales in excess of $50,000, and with a 1-year term that has a $25 renewal fee. I think if the EDC over time were to decide that these terms are unreasonable or gets that kind of a feedback, we certainly could choose to amend those later. Again, I don't, in my mind, this is to work with businesses and help promulgate our name and icon out there. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions or comments that y'all have.
Richard, before anyone gets started, I intend to recuse myself from this because I would like to pursue a licensing should it pass. So I will do my best to keep my mouth shut.
Richard, what was the second fee structure that you listed? I got the first one and the last one.
Okay, I'll restate the whole thing just to make sure everyone gets it, but I'll go a little slower. $25 for sales up to $1,000. $50 for sales from $1,000 to $50,000, and 1% for sales over $50,000. That last one there is to just cover us in the chance of that someone that I don't foresee basically becomes $1 million seller of something with our logo attached to it. Well, then we're going to ride along on a percentage basis, and I'd have a renewal fee of $25 attached in there too, with a 1-year term on these contracts. And these would be something that if the MEDC were to want to reconsider, we could change these terms, and then for new companies, and we could as these contracts expire, then negotiate a new contract that has the newer terms that would change over time. And so if these are acceptable, then I can work with the attorney to finalize those and start putting them into place. Or, and obviously this is your opportunity for discussion if you think I'm, need to look a different direction with these. But my thought is these are reasonable, really trying to, put something there that local companies might want to lock on to and utilize and help, help push the identity and name of the city a little farther out there. And the MEDC would get a little back. Hopefully we help generate additional sales for local businesses.
So I assume that staff will look closely at the types of products that will have our logo on it.
Yeah, we did discuss, and I would want to work with our attorney to have a clause in there that we would have the right, find a way that put the language in there that
no adult films.
Thank you. Yeah, we were discussing how to characterize some of those things in there. Yeah, I don't know that it's the best imagery for our logo to appear, say on on vaping instruments.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and while it's a valid business that happens to exist in this city and elsewhere, we don't necessarily want to put our image on that and make it more attractive maybe to children.
Right.
So Richard, has anybody reached, I know you didn't have the fee structure in place, but anybody inquired with the city, had any serious inquiries?
I've not had any serious inquiries at this point, but what I do know is when we've made a couple masks or small items that we've things that we've given away as some of our contest prizes. Most of the city staff has a mask with the GOAT logo on it, and as they've worn them around town, a number of people have inquired how they could get them. And so that's really why I believe there would be the local market, for things like, those masks, t-shirts, caps. I'm sure other business owners might have other ideas of how to do that, of what they would use it for.
Okay, so the mock-ups were just done by staff, basically, or worn by staff. You didn't, there wasn't a small minimum quantity ordered to show to folks or anything like that?
The ones that were of those masks that I had made up, they were produced by a family member, and okay. So who has that ability, and so I was able to do that on a small order just to cover the materials.
So what's the anticipated way of marketing this? Is it the city gonna contact folks, or?
Well, I'm partly hoping that word of mouth helps generate the attention, but my initial outreach would be for us to contact, contact businesses that are here in the city and, and find out where that interest is.
Okay.
My immediate thoughts are, along the line of, clothing type items, become obvious to me. But someone who's in business out there, with their imagination, knowing their product, might come up with other ways that I haven't anticipated.
Do you have any thoughts, Tom?
No, I really don't. I mean, I guess you'd have to cross merchandise with somebody's, whether they have their own logo or not. But ideally, I wish we had some sort of city store or something, but that would include us providing funds for it. But start with a small inventory of a couple of items.
Yeah.
But I don't really have any big ideas on that.
Well, and maybe in this way, this might be a way for us to get to that point. It wouldn't necessarily start as a city store, but it becomes someone else providing city product. Maybe there's a way that ultimately, we would have, if not maybe a city storefront, or maybe just some store sets up a wing that helps do that for us. I don't know what the future would hold with that, but maybe some of it ends up being other people's products that ends up getting sold in City Hall, or from the point of City Hall and city websites, they get directed somewhere else that does that. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself with thoughts I hadn't thought about there, but I think there become a lot of options, and dealing with the free market. I expect they'll bring ideas that I wouldn't have anticipated.
Has there been consideration for maybe putting a booth at the the trip and stroll or the farmer's market, something like that for Saturday?
Yeah, that's not something I hadn't thought of, but I think something like that becomes a great place for someone who licenses the product to be able to market that product, and then they take on the risk of producing the product, getting it out there and selling it, and the city ends up making a little money based on their effort.
Okay.
Ultimately, we're not signing over the exclusive rights, so that the city can always decide. I mean, we're talking, these are annual contracts. It doesn't mean that the MBDC can't at some point not renew these contracts. It also doesn't mean that we can't look at potentially having products that would be our own. I don't know of another example of an economic development corporation doing that for themselves. But I'm willing to look at creative options in the future. But at the moment, I think our best option is working with companies that are already out there and people who want to put that effort forward, with us getting a share along the way.
A start would be probably to just go backtrack through the vendors that we've had in the past that have done these festivals to see if they may be interested in doing something like that. Also, social media is a good way to present something out there. And if it does actually take off to where the city's producing these things, Facebook market is a huge avenue to move product. So.
But just starting off, it'd be good to have private businesses create the inventory and put those expenses out first to see how it goes.
Yeah. And one thing that we can,
expensive to start it off.
Yeah, I apologize there. One thing that we can do is, as those local businesses, have some of that inventory, that we could use social media, to help link to their locations, push people that direction, which has the dual purpose of, marketing our identity, our social media icon, marketing that business. Any sale a local business makes, we potentially get a share off the license agreement. We also get the part of money from tax revenue that those sales make. And there's also the economic multiplier effect of money, all money that circulates within the city. If whatever product I buy here for the city or within the city, that goes to support a local business. That business employs people locally. Those employees purchase from other local businesses. And so that money has a way of moving itself around town.
Right. I'm a little uncomfortable with, pushing a specific business that's not necessarily, like if there are 3 t-shirt companies with t-shirts, picking one over the other, but, it's not a bad idea to have our t-shirt and then say, hey, come down and, shop in Montgomery and eat and dine in Montgomery and, take some time relaxing. We've got wineries and look at our cool merchandise. So, we've got this there's 6 shops with Montgomery merchandise or something like that. I think, having it be more general and making people want to come here for something specific, but spend the whole day enjoying shopping is probably more advantageous to all of the businesses equally.
Yeah.
But use the pictures of merchandise as the hook.
Yeah. And I think it's a soft way of accomplishing that. And I certainly, I would not argue that point. It's like, we definitely don't want to be playing favorites on local businesses just because someone doesn't choose to license our product. I wouldn't want to necessarily grant them the image that we were not favoring them while favoring someone else. So we want to maintain that position. But at the same time, like you said, if it's a T-shirt that someone's doing, we can make sure that's seen in in what we're promoting out there while we're getting people for local businesses. If they happen to see that shirt in a window, they can make the decision to buy it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and I think go ahead. I was just going to say, you know, what drives different people to come here are completely different, even within a certain family. So, you know, some kid might have seen another kid with a goat logo and has to have it. And so, you know, it might show up on their Facebook feed. And so the kids are like, Montgomery, 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 this is why I want to go. And the parents are like, yeah, I don't care. But if the ad is all about, you know, this is what all we have here, the parents might be more interested in coming, even if the kid only wants to come for a goat t-shirt. So, you know, that's another reason to not be so specific about just merchandise.
So would the territory be Texas or what?
Yeah, I'm not sure we even need to specific. I don't think we're big enough for what we would do that we would even need to specify territory. Because especially with online sales, you know, if it was one of our local businesses, you know, I wouldn't really care as much if they were selling, you know, that item to someone who lived in North Dakota, if it was generating business and revenue.
Well, hell, the contract just talks about territories.
Yeah.
And it talks about California, so I assume we'd be changing that to Texas.
Yeah, and my thought is that would be something that we could strike from it on that part, because I don't think talking about territory really applies to what we're doing here. We're really trying to make this on more of a local reach, not a regional or larger reach.
But again, if somebody like Lone Star Beer came in, I think all of that, we would need like a one-off contract specifically to deal with something major like that.
And that's something
because then territories might actually matter.
Yeah.
And exclusivity would matter to them. So that would, sorry, I'm supposed to be recused, but.
And that would be an example of a case.
I'm not planning on bringing Lone Star Beer to the goat.
Yeah, I wasn't sure I wanted to bring up whether or not that was an appropriate product for our goat, but for, you know, regardless, if it was someone with a large reach and a national or international brand, yeah, if we're talking about not making this exclusive, but for all businesses, but they wanted to license it for a specific type of product, well, then we can tell them we can negotiate for a specific contract for that use.
And how do they report what their sales are?
That's well, that would be largely self-reported, but they agree to open their books up for examination. Honestly, for the most part, it's small dollar amounts. You know, it's going to be only worth so much of our effort to go into that. But if we see a company out here sending out, you know, truckloads of product that we suspect are ours, you know, and they tell us they sold $5 worth of product, that would be maybe worth more of our time to look into it.
So do they just on the front end project what their estimated sales are going to be, and that's what they pay for the copyright?
I think that's really where I would start, and
okay.
you know, ask them to supply us a quarterly report. So, you know, as they supply us a report each quarter, you know, they can make up any additional amounts along that way.
Okay.
Let's throw the bait in the water and see if we get somebody to bite first. I mean, this is a government discussion to where the tail's wagging the dog right now. Yeah. Things to where these are great, but let's get somebody, let's see who's going to bite. And like you say, we need to talk to the attorney once we find somebody, because I'm sure a lot of these parameters will get changed, especially if it's a major corporation or as opposed to a local. So,
if you want to make the motion for me to incorporate these the comments we've discussed in, you know, and finalize the contract with our city attorney, you know, and put it out there in the market, then I'm happy to start that for you.
And we're dealing, our attorney's a copyright attorney.
Well, with this, I was dealing with our city attorney. With regards to the copyright, we do have a separate attorney for that. The draft agreement came from as I said, came from our regular city attorney. And while he doesn't do specifically copyright, he does work with other economic development corporations.
I would not know how to word a motion on this.
Well, if you want me to kind of word something and you want to say so moved, I'm happy to make that effort for you.
Give it a shot.
Okay, my recommendation is to direct the city administrator to incorporate the fee structure and the comments from the MEDC board into a draft final agreement. Work with the city attorney on a final review of that agreement for his approval, and then allow the city administrator to start to to work with local businesses that might want to enter into that agreement with the city, and to be able to execute that agreement. And then between now and our next meeting, then I can let you know how the water's looking, from what you said in your fishing metaphor.
I so move with what Richard's statement was, with the exception that this thing be fluid, obviously, to where it can be, with the advice of the attorneys, obviously.
Yeah.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the MEDC board directs the city administrator to incorporate the fee structure and comments from the MEDC board into a draft final agreement, and work with the attorney to create a final licensing agreement, and to work with local businesses to get the goat and into product and out for sale in the community. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Are there any further discussion items on this matter? All those in favor of the aforementioned items, motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no.
No.
The motion oh, sorry, I wasn't supposed to vote. The motion carries 3-1 with Dan Walker, Julie Hutchison, Amy Brown voting in favor, Tom Cronin voting against. And the MEDC board directs the city administrator to incorporate the fee structure and comments from the MEDC board into a draft final agreement, and to work with the attorney to create a final licensing agreement, and work with local businesses to get the goat into product and out in the community for sale. Item number 9, consideration of possible action on the request by Montgomery County United to use up to $3,000 in blight removal funds to improve the visual look of several properties on the north side of the city.
Okay. We don't have all the paperwork on this yet. We had a similar item on the agenda December of last year. Spoken with Arnett late last week, and so he was hoping to try to be able to get me some of the information. What this group, Montgomery County United, wants to do is work on the visual appeal for several properties on the north side of the city. On different homes, that may include things such as repairing steps or ramps, painting some of the exterior of home locations, taking down brush, may include some plantings to include the visual appeal. I know 4 of the homes that they wanted to put a few plants in front of were the 4 homes that were built under the home grant project, but there are other homes that they wanted to do some work for. So since we don't have the application paperwork or their summary, the 2 possibilities are this could be tabled until the January meeting as a reimbursement, or the board could choose to approve this contingent on the city administrator receiving both the application as well as a detailed estimate of how the funds would be spent.
The previous time that we did this, the monies were put into a big pot, and we were told about all these projects that were done. Some of the projects were in Conroe, some were here. There was no specifics of where our money was spent. So I would like to see very specifically where they intend to spend our funds and how much that's going to cost, and some details. It's just, it's very loosey-goosey at this point. And I'm just not comfortable until I see some specific details.
So Richard, what is Montgomery County United? I'm assuming it's not affiliated with the United Way.
No, it's not. It's a group that assists local area residents. They are broader than just the city of Montgomery. They do reach, as Amy said, they have done work that does, it is within the city. It's also, potentially outside of the city. And I don't have all the locations that they were looking towards. And I can't tell you with certainty if they've identified all of those yet or not. So, yeah.
All right, so I'd be a lot more comfortable if it just spent locally and not in the county. There's a lot of monies available throughout the county for county projects, but I would prefer, I think, like Amy, to probably keep it more specific and local.
Okay. Well, I know their target is to do this work here, in the latter part of November, and possibly even some in December. So if you want to table this until January, they can come back, as where this would be a reimbursement item at that point if it's after the fact. And that certainly makes it easier to state where those items went.
I think that's what we did last year. I'm looking at my packet from last year, and they had given us a flyer that listed the work that I think it was called Serve Week, and it listed the addresses of the locations of where they worked and what they did specifically. And then there were also receipts turned in from McCoy's for the lumber and the materials and things like that.
But that flyer showed projects.
There was one location
all over the place, and
there was one location in Conroe. Correct.
Yeah, it didn't specifically say that we need so-and-so funds for this specific project. It's just
right.
I don't want to just turn over $3,000 and say, oh, do something.
All right. I wouldn't be opposed to the $3,000 if we maybe had a line item agenda and maybe a draw system to where, hey, you get this done, boom, you get this amount of money according to your agenda.
Okay.
I mean, that way the work gets done and it's not a, $500 lunch.
Okay. And if that's what the board wants to see, then I will communicate that. And like I said, if we're looking at this as a reimbursement after the fact, at the next meeting, it certainly becomes much easier for them to provide. These are the locations that work was done, and these are the materials that went into these locations.
Some specific.
I was going to say, I think that was part of the problem with the McCoy's receipts, is that they weren't sure which dollar values went to which project. So that would be really helpful if they could split that out. But while they, in the purchase rather than, trying to do it afterwards. Excuse me. So it's the motion to table that until we receive, and then do it as a reimbursement request until we receive a grant request.
Second, was that a motion?
Sure. It has been moved and seconded that we table the request by Montgomery County United to use up to $3,000 in blight removal funds. We will revisit this at the January meeting as a reimbursement item. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority. Requires majority vote. Is open for further discussion. If there is anyone. All those in favor of the motion that we table the request by Montgomery County United to use up to $3,000 in blight removal funds, say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will table the request by Montgomery County United to use up to $3,000 in blight removal funds, and this we'll revisit this in January as a reimbursement request grant item. Item number 10, Economic Development Report.
I can tell you construction is continuing across the city, both residential and commercial. At the Shops of Montgomery location, the one strip center building that they've got there, Chipotle is advertising that they're beginning hiring, and the interior construction is ongoing in at least 3 of the locations there. The Starbucks a little farther to the west, is also well under construction. And I think that's going to be welcome to the city when it opens. We had 2 new businesses open this month. Wings over Montgomery, in the downtown area on 149, as well as the Naughty by Nature Apothecary that serves juice and pastries where Fare Thee Well was located. So, residential construction is also continued. In 2020 overall, we had 63 new homes completed. 8 of those were completed in October, and 9 new permits were issued in October. Normally, when we start hitting the late November to December in January timeframe, holidays will slow us down, but we haven't yet seen the signs of that from a permitting perspective. And so we also have the area on Ples Morgan that is being in development for the future construction of the townhomes to go in that location. All of the home grant homes have been completed. The people have moved in, and we are just waiting to receive, the city receives the funds, and then we'll pay the contractors. And so had a discussion between, that money is currently stuck between the state and us. Apparently they mailed us a check about 2 weeks ago, and they mailed it to themselves instead of to us. And so now they're in the process of mailing the check a second time. And they sent that to our previous PO box. So we're going to see if it gets forwarded, if it goes back to them again. In the meantime, while we're waiting, we provided them with a direct deposit form. So if the check comes back a second time, they can just send us the money electronically. So, fortunately, we're not the ones who've held that one up, but it seems to be we can't quite get that one complete, and obviously I can't pay the contractor with funds we don't have. And I'll also address that the comprehensive plan was adopted by the city on November 10th, and we've already discussed the downtown improvement plan as that is beginning to move forward. So, so we added the 2 new businesses that opened to our businesses opened in 2020 list, and hopefully we'll have a few more on there before we close out the year. And then the engineering report is also attached. If anyone has questions on any of these, I'd be happy to try to take those.
Richard, I've noticed there's been some site prep started over at the the northwest corner of the loop, and what is that, Buffalo Springs, or the cut through over to the Shell station on 1097.
Are you talking more to the west side of that as you go back and go down the hill?
Well, it starts at the top of the hill and goes all the way to the creek. Yeah. Okay.
I think what you're talking about there, that's the area where the townhomes are going to go, and there's going to be some other construction along with that follows. So, and I think that's going to be be a nice addition to the area. It's a little different than the housing that we currently have, but I think it helps get a good variety of housing that's available.
How many units are going to be, Richard?
I don't have that information in front of me. I think Dave knows.
Yep. There'll be 48 units.
Okay.
Do you know the price point, Dave? Not that it's important, I'm just curious.
I do not. My understanding is that it's lower than what the current apartments lease for.
All right, does anyone have any other questions for Richard on this item? All right, then, with your permission, I'll move on to, I assume we're skipping executive session, Richard?
I do not have anything for executive session.
All right, item number 12, board inquiry. Does anyone have anything that we need to follow up on or wishes to put on the agenda for next time, or just generally questions?
Do we have an update on the radios?
Radios.
I know they are expected soon. It's been about 2 weeks since I talked to the chief on that, and they're supposed to be 2 to 3 weeks out, but they've been 2 to 3 weeks out for a while. So I will make a note to follow up with on that. Thank you for the reminder.
Is that invoice now going to be dated in November or December in this fiscal year?
We'd asked for it that it be dated last fiscal year, but since I haven't seen it, there's a distinct possibility of that.
I only say that because we only have, I think I calculate 16,700 left in the events category. And then with the radios, if that hits this fiscal year, we're done with events for the most part.
Maybe you could encourage them by telling them we're not going to pay it unless it's billed in the previous fiscal year.
Money can be a powerful motivator for things like that.
Yeah,
exactly. We'll have to bill it. They could wait till the next fiscal year if they'd like.
We did order it last fiscal year, did we not?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we ordered it. I forget exactly when, but we certainly ordered it, easily before the end of the fiscal year.
I thought we
and
did.
Specified that we desired that the invoicing to be prior to or on September 30th, 2020.
Yeah.
Yep. So their choice. They can bill it next fiscal year or the previous one.
Not this one.
Right.
I don't mind passing that word along.
The only thing I have left on my to-do list is do we have any updates on the licensings and copyright activities?
We don't at this time. We have been coordinating with the attorney that we've engaged on that. Yeah, he at the time we first talked to him, which I think was about 6 to 7 weeks ago, he envisioned it was a 3 to 4 month project. And so it's just going to take time to work through their process. He's been going back and forth, dealing with, I don't know the proper term, but the people at the trademark office. And he's concurrently working, through the copyright. The copyright, I understand, is a simpler process than the trademark. And what little I know about the distinction between the two, I've learned in this process.
Following up.
No problem. By the time when we next meet, we certainly should know more information based on the time frame.
Hopefully.
Hey guys, excuse me, I was a little late getting here. Richard, did you get that item on the agenda? The beautification project?
I did. There's definitely questions about looking for an itemized list of how and where those funds are to be spent. And so the board was choosing to table that item until the next meeting. And then I was going to contact you and coordinate about getting a specific list of where the items and the cost went. And so I can certainly work with you on that and then bring that back.
I definitely understand that. And just for the board would know, these projects is just a small band-aid for the bigger problem that some of the areas in Montgomery is facing. And I personally take these projects on myself to try to show that we are doing something, we're moving. And although we put it under my nonprofit, but we just can't not do nothing. And I think $3,000 for our request, and that's only a fraction of what need to be spent. If it don't happen, of course, I'm a pretty good beggar. I can go out and solicit funds. So whatever you guys see fit to make happen, that's fine. If not, we'll just move in a different direction. But I get Richard the information he needs.
And I don't think anyone made comments disputing, the validity of using the funds for that purpose. It was about the due diligence with the public money to make sure that they knew what location, what money was applied to. And so I think those are just details I can get from you and represent.
Okay. And Arnett, we also talked about, we know Montgomery United services not more of the county, not just the city of Montgomery. So we just wanted to make sure that the MEDC funds are used locally within Montgomery.
Absolutely. I got about 20 projects that need to be done, and we only cover. Sure. Yeah, I'm asked for 3, more like need about 50.
I think our budget is 15 for the fiscal year.
Yeah, I understand. So y'all can put them on the book for the next 10 years then.
If you have the volunteers that are willing to work for the next 10 years, that's amazing, because it's hard to find people who are willing to work that hard.
This is true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like 5 in 1.
Okay, any other questions under inquiry?
Was there anything on those goat cutouts that has happened?
We've completed application. No one's completed one yet. The Public Works Department has 5. Well, they got 6 complete, but we have 5 that are available. Public Works is going to maintain one of those 6 as the stencil for the rest. And when people start coming, applying for some of them, they will go ahead and produce the others.
Okay.
I've been speaking to people who are planning on doing it. They just haven't done it yet. Okay. Is kind of the feedback I've been getting. So.
Okay, because that also comes out of the events category.
Right.
And as far as the curb stops, you guys are going to do a few of those, then I guess bill us on a case-by-case basis, or how is that going to work?
Right. I forget the details. I'd have to go back and review my notes on that. But for the most part, we've done the ones that were planned to be done, at least for the foreseeable future. And we can revisit that in the springtime as well if more may be needed.
Yeah, I think the MEDC wanted to make sure that they lasted for a while. Okay, is everyone finished with Richard then on board inquiry?
Thank you, then.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay. If that's the case, then we can move to item number 13, which is adjournment. Would someone like to make a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adjourn. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. It's unanimous. We are adjourned at 7:11. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attendance and participation.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
And later, Raffles.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Arnett.
And Amy, if you didn't catch it, Arnett came in
I did.
at 6:56.
6:57.
Okay. I had 6:56, but I think we're good.
Close enough.
All right, good night.
Thank you, Arnett, for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
All right. Night, everyone.